this lapel.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You can finally turn it off, huh?
Yeah. You ought to know how to turn it off by now.
It won't go off.
You give me that thing.
Okay.
Thank you very much. And thank you, folks. Thank you, Pastor, for letting me come in here and invade on a Wednesday evening. You need a book satchel, girl.
Oh, thank you.
You got a lot of stuff there. Back in the back, we have some little posters we made. I wish it was an original idea. We saw somebody else who had scribbled it on a piece of paper. We just made it a little bit prettier. We've got some for you back there if you want them on that blue table back there. Posted notice, no trespassing, no soliciting.
On my front door, Chad.
You got one on there, sis? Atta girl.
Allison put it out, boom, on my front door. And I even washed the glass first.
Atta girl.
I know, see,
Says we don't want what you're selling. We know who we're voting for. Hashtag Prather 2022. Hashtag Keep Texas Red. Hashtag Abbott out. If we wanted the vaccine, we got it. If we don't want it, we won't get it. And then it's got our information on the back. So we've had a lot of people. It's kind of been interesting. Well, it'll never turn on again. I never thought that we would live to see a day where we have people going door to door trying to vaccinate us. Absolute insanity, but it's happening. The first rollout of that is taking place. I saw in the news today. And it's crazy that we're allowing certain things to happen. I want government out of my life. Amen. I want the government out of your life. Government ought to be boring. Politics ought to be boring. We are a people created by God with a desire for community. We like to be passionate about something. We like to have faith in something bigger than ourselves. If you remove faith in God from our lives, we will gravitate towards something to get a sense of community and to get a sense of belonging and to be a part of something bigger than us. We're living in many ways, a secular and a godless society. We're being bombarded with it on a daily basis. We have laughed at and laundered and pandered to our sinful natures to the point where it's gotten watered down, and we've grown callous in our conscience. And we put up with a lot of things that historically would have made us blush, but we've become a society that doesn't blush anymore. And so many of us have embraced politics as a bigger thing than us, and we've gotten very passionate about it. I'm passionate about a lot of things, but I'm not real passionate about an industry, and let's just call it what it is these days, that's entire purpose for existing is to beat someone else. And that's what politics has become. It's all about your opponent. It's all about your stance, their stance, the debate. I love the fact that we're calling what Alan West, Colonel West, and Don Huffines, who both are my friends, by the way, I'm proud that we're calling them forums and symposiums rather than debates. Because if they said something and they said, well, what do you think about that? I'd say, yep. We agree on things. We just have a different way of saying it, a different face behind it, a different personality that's there. And we've gotten real passionate about politics. And in a lot of ways, we have replaced the things that are good in our life with a worldview of politics that has made us really bitter people. And you go online and you see this, and the vitriol and the hate, and it's all about the red and the blue, and it's about the right and the left, and it's about the Dems and the Republicans and the Libertarians and the Independents and the Greens, and I don't even know if the Whig Party still exists. I've got some people out there that wish. It's weird. But we line up and we marshal our forces against one another, and we destroy the community that we were looking to build and be a part of all along. You know, I tell people all the time, or I have historically, that a bird has two healthy wings. It's got a right wing, it's got a left wing. And in a perfect world, we wouldn't live out on the wings. We'd come into the body of the bird, and where the body of the bird is, there's a heartbeat, and there's a pulse, and there's vision, and there's a brain, and there's a heartbeat, and there's eyesight, there's vision. But we've gotten away from the body of the bird and the vitality and the life, and we've gotten way out on the tips of the wings where people can't even recognize what we stand for anymore because we've gotten radicalized by this fight that we're in with each other. And these are the things that government wants to exist in our lives because they know that it weakens us as a community. It takes the power away from us. It demobilizes us, immobilizes us, and ultimately decentralizes us. And it gives those we elected to be our representatives suddenly to behave like dictators. See, they want you and me to be divided. They want us to be separate. They want us to be different. They want us to fight with each other. Government is not your friend. If you think it is, stop paying them. And see how that goes. So wherever I go, I've been trying to encourage people. Stop building your passions around beating somebody else. And let's get past that. I'm operating under a philosophy of ABA, anyone but Abbott. And I know that many of you would say, well, doesn't that fly in the face of what you just told us? Well, the problem is, I don't want ill to fall upon Governor Abbott. I don't want anything to happen to him or anything of that nature. I just want to be free. And I believe that Governor Abbott created a scenario whereby government got further involved in my life than I ever invited it to be. I don't want it to be. I believe that I'm free to do what I want to do as long as it doesn't usurp your freedoms. As long as what I'm doing doesn't infringe on your freedoms, I should be able to do it, and likewise. The problem is the government that claims to protect our freedom, the politicians that we elected to represent us and to preserve our freedom, are infringing on our rights, and they're taking away our liberties. I was on my friend Andrew Wilkow's show on Patriot XM a couple of weeks ago, and he said, I live in New Jersey, man. I live in New Jersey, and we would love to have a governor compared to ours. We'd love to have a governor like Greg Abbott. And I said, that's because you're New Jersey. I said, you've had so many swaths of liberty taken away from you over the years, you don't even recognize freedom anymore. Same with New York, same with Illinois, same with Gretchen Whitmer's Michigan, same with California, Washington. I was just in Seattle a few weeks ago. In Seattle, people come to me. I go there every year to do a show. They come to me, and they know more about Texas politics than many people here in Texas. And they look at me and they say, why are you guys letting this happen in Texas, of all places? Because they know their freedom's gone. And I'm looking around, and I'm seeing these freedoms be chipped away, and then bigger chunks, and we just get comfortable with it. And I'm like, these things ought not be. And so when I threw my hat in the ring, at least vocally a year ago, to run in a primary race as a Republican against Greg Abbott in 2022, I did it on Twitter, of all places. I was in South Dakota. I was with Don Trump Jr. having dinner, and I got a news notification on my phone that said another mandate, another shutdown was being issued by Governor Greg Abbott here in the state of Texas. And I don't know if it's because I was hanging out with a Trump or I was drinking wine or what it could have been, but I jumped on Twitter and said I'm running, and I went to bed that night, woke up to a firestorm the next day. And I realized that there were a lot of other people like me who are fed up with having their freedoms taken away, having their liberties infringed. And you look at the pandemic and people say, oh, he shut things down, but he was quick to open things back up. No, he wasn't. Shelley's still being sued by the city of Dallas. That doesn't sound very freeing. Our friend Chris Pallone in Fort Worth, he's up to about $300,000 in legal fees, still dealing with the TABC, because he's a 51% nightclub owner, bar owner, live music venue owner. This isn't over with. See, Greg Abbott played arsonist and fireman with the pandemic. And people say, well, you can play armchair quarterback. How would you have handled it different? I said, I would have been constitutional. You don't unilaterally and dictatorially shut down a free people to keep them safe. The Constitution wasn't written to keep you safe. The Constitution was written to keep you free. I've got it right here in my pocket. This is not a safe document. In fact, the people who wrote this document, many of them, the folks who crafted these founding documents, whether it was the Declaration of Independence, they knew that their life was on the line. They knew that if they didn't win their independence from Great Britain, that they were going to be men who were hung. Many of them lost their livelihoods, lost their fortunes. Their families were cast out. They were taken away. They were imprisoned. They were tortured in many ways, in imprisonment. These were the signers of the Declaration of Independence. The idea of America was not to give government so much power that we lose our sense of community and we find our passion in fighting with each other and beating each other. But if you look at the history of America and the history of politics in America, the Constitution crafted something whereby we could debate, disagree, dialogue, and argue with one another, but still come back and be one as Americans. The Constitution guaranteed that because it was the one binding document that not only kept us together, it kept us free. And as free men and women, we had the liberty to speak out on these issues, and we did not allow someone to dictatorially or tyrannically take our freedoms away from us. And that's what happened last year. People say to me, they say, well, why didn't you start at a lower level? Well, first of all, I didn't want to run for office at all. I didn't want to. People say, well, why didn't you run for something in your city or something in your municipality or your state rep? Because the state rep, it didn't take my constitutional rights. Greg Abbott did. He did it without any counsel. He did it without talking to anybody that was in leadership there. He did it without talking to the legislator. He just unilaterally decided that he was going to shut down the state. And then he wanted to open it back up recently and take the masks away and allow people to go back to church again and allow people to go out and enjoy their lives again. And he wanted to pat himself on the back and congratulate himself for being the guy who lifted the mandates. Any guy that spends $295 million of your hard-earned taxpayer dollars to pay for contact tracing, that in and of itself is enough reason to boot somebody out of office. That's an invasion of your liberty. A man who wants to take $100 million of taxpayer money and put it in higher education. That sounds noble, but yet in the next breath he wants to crowdfund a wall. I woke up this morning on the Mexican border. I woke up in Valverde County. I woke up in Del Rio on a ranch. I was right there on Lake Amistad, the reservoir just off, across the lake is Mexico. 2 days ago, I watched 5 boats drive across Lake Amistad and drop untold number pounds of dope on the flats and the shores right there in America, in Texas. 10 o'clock that night, we saw the cars go down there, pick it up, grab it, take it back. 120 miles of border, Valverde County. 120 miles down there. You know how many miles of wall there is in Valverde County? 2. There's 1 mile on that side of the point of entry. There's 1 mile on that side of the point of entry. They took me down. I wish I could show you the videos and the pictures. You actually can see it. You go watch my show. It's on YouTube, Chad Prather Show. We aired it tonight. There's this big 12-foot wall. It looks great, right? And you turn around and you walk this far, and suddenly the wall stops, and there's a piece of barbed wire. You just walk around it, and you're right there. 1,100 apprehensions a day in Valverde County. There's nowhere to put them. They come across the river. I walked down to the river. I could look across the river. I stood on the banks of the Rio Grande on Monday afternoon. I stood on the banks of the Rio Grande. I looked across the river, and I could see Mexican citizens over there. The men, the women, on the other side of the bank. When the night goes down, they come across right there at that point. There's no wall. There's no barrier. They just walk across the river. They've got their clothes on. They've got a garbage sack with their belongings in the garbage sack. They come across. They get out. They strip down naked right there in the parking lot. Just walk right up on the bank. Come out. There's a parking lot. They strip down. They put on their dry clothes. They throw all their trash over on the side of the road. And they wait. You know what they wait for? They wait for the troopers to come. They don't go running into the country. They don't have to. They wait for the Border Patrol to come. And Border Patrol acts as an Uber driver for them. Picks them up, takes them to a processing center. They run them through. And you know what they do with them? If they don't have priors, if they don't have wanteds, if they're not offenders in some way, if they don't have a record, guess where they go? In some cases, they give them an envelope. We don't know what all is in the envelope, a manila envelope. On the outside of the envelope, it says their name. It has where they're going, and they drop them off at the airport. I saw numerous buses that were loaded up with illegals. And you know what? They disappear in the night, and nobody knows where they go. Sex trafficking. Those who are convicted of sex trafficking in Valverde County, that 120 miles of Texas borderland. Those smuggling humans in the last month up 300%. Val Verde County. You got a governor that wants to crowdfund a wall. I'm pretty passionate about this right now. Our Texas is being invaded. We're losing our sense of sovereignty. We've lost our border. We have no control. We have an untenable future. This border crisis is just one among many. We've got an energy crisis. We've got a water crisis. Nobody's talking about the water crisis. We've got a Democrat crisis. I've been looking under chairs, seeing if I could find House members hiding out somewhere. I don't know where they are. They're up in Washington, D.C., hiding under Nancy Pelosi's skirt or something like that. I don't know what's going on with this whole deal. Let me tell you something. People ask me, they've asked me for 2 days, what would you do? What would you do? I said, I'll tell you what. I'd do a lot of things I might get in trouble for. They'd arrest me if I were governor. Because when those people showed back up, the locks on their offices would be changed. Their staff would be fired. I would declare their position vacant, their seat vacant. I would demand that they never hold state office again. Forget putting them in jail. They want that. They want that. Forget docking their pay. That doesn't mean anything to them. They've monetized everything in Austin. They don't care about that. I'd fire their staff. It would be a scorched earth. It would be what's called a Carthaginian peace. The people of Carthage, when they would destroy another land, they would plow under their fields and pour salt on it so nothing would ever grow there again. That's my attitude towards the left. I want to keep Texas red. I want to make Texas red. Right now we are deep purple. And we're being invaded. We're being invaded by California. We're being invaded by Washington. And I mean Washington State. Because they can't handle it anymore. They're running out. They don't know what true conservatism. They don't know what the spirit of Texas is. You know, I tell people all the time, I say, the spirit of Texas, you can't teach that. It's not taught. It's caught. You either get it or you don't get it. And many of you, I moved out here 20 years ago. Grew up in the state of Georgia. Had to get away from the family business of meth. And I'm a country boy. I grew up down in the woods. I grew up in the world of horses, cutting and reining. We still have Prather quarter horses back home. My uncle's a cutting judge, cutting trainer. That's what I grew up with. Didn't know anything about rodeo. Still really don't know anything about rodeo. Just respect the folks who do it. A lot of friends in that world. Came out to Fort Worth 20 years ago. I can remember visiting out here, and I said to a friend of mine who was a native Texan, like 5th generation, I said, "You Texans are funny. Y'all would rather be Texans than Americans." And he said, "You're right." And I said, "Man, I don't quite understand this passion." I came out here though and spent a little time, and I was like, I have found my tribe. These people think a little bit bigger. They think a little larger. They walk a little bit taller. They have an element about them that they've got something here. And you realize with that spirit of Texas comes a fighting spirit, and we're losing that. We're not a red state anymore because we don't have red cities anymore. We got 5 major cities that are influenced and one in the middle. We got El Paso, we got Dallas, we got Fort Worth, we got San Antonio, we got Houston, and then the hub right in the middle is Austin. They are all voting blue now. They're not red cities anymore, they're blue cities, even Tarrant County. And someone asked me in a Brenham newspaper interview, they said, if you make it to Austin, do you think you can handle living in Austin since Austin's not like the rest of Texas? I said, that's the problem. The fact that Austin isn't like the rest of Texas, that's an issue. It's not representing anything. What about these counties out here? What about your county? I believe that if you're going to make an amendment to the Constitution in the state of Texas, it should take 3/4 ratification by all the counties, 3/4 of the counties in Texas. That way, Houston and Dallas aren't dictating to Val Verde County, and Harris County isn't dictating to Parker County. But see, every county should have a voice in the state of Texas. But we've gotten away from that, and we've gotten in trouble with that. We can't trust our elections. We can't trust the schools to educate our children. We're dealing with Marxism that's continually being pandered and renamed and repackaged under different things. And right now we're dealing with critical race theory, which shouldn't exist in human society at all. Certainly not America and definitely not Texas. We're allowing gender modification in our children. We have a governor who has received lobbyist funds from those clinics. We have a Speaker of the House who's received funds from those clinics. These things ought not be. We've got biological males who are competing with our daughters in high school, collegiate, and amateur sports. And we're not saying anything about it. Where's common sense? We talk about the border issue. I mean, where's common sense? At what point in time do we say enough is enough? It is time for the people to come back together and form that community of citizens, and we say no more. We're not going to let the few that have billions of dollars that have been given to them, and now they are in the deep pockets of multinational corporations, in many cases foreign nations, and definitely in taxpayer-funded lobbyists and special interest groups. We got to say enough is enough and stop it right now. I love the book that Robert's got back there in the back, and I hope that every one of you walks out with a book of this book, The 5-Star Plan. I've read this book. You can read it. If you're a good reader, you can read this thing in an hour. It took me 2. And he's written a great book here. I was down there. I had a house full of people. We had about 50 people in a household yesterday. We got that up in 24 hours. Joe Biden couldn't do that with 3 months planning. And they were asking me the question. They said, we don't trust our elections anymore. How do we know? So you want to vote people out. We don't have term limits. How can we deal with them? We don't trust our elections anymore. We don't believe in the integrity of elections. What do we do? I said, you read this book and you start right here. But I'm telling you, these are the principles right here that are going to get us back to taking control of our state. You got 500 empty precinct chairs in Harris County alone. Most of the Texas population don't know what a precinct chair does, don't even know what it is. They much less know what a primary election does. We haven't been taught civics, we haven't been taught history, everything's been revised. We don't know what we're doing, we're just bebopping along, playing with our phones, looking at TikTok. We've turned our kids' minds over to these brainwashing institutions called public education. We're allowing the government, both the federal and the state, to dictate to us what we put in our bodies. We're being told that we can't do business unless we meet certain criteria. You starting to feel a little enslaved yet? This is horrible. Shelley couldn't go to work. She couldn't open her business. I love what you say, Shelley, when you're like, well, how'd you open up? She said, I had the key and I put it in the door and turned the lock. I mean, this common sense, right? It's amazing how that happens. I'm at a point now where I'm fed up. I came out here to Texas, like I said, I caught the spirit of Texas a long time ago. We're different. That's a good thing. Back when Hurricane Harvey hit, they had me on Fox News. And Fox News they'd have me on Fox and Friends in the morning, and they would want me to do something funny, say something kind of tongue-in-cheek. And they wanted me to talk about Hurricane Harvey. I said, well, there's nothing funny about Hurricane Harvey. And I was sitting there thinking, I was like, what's unique about Texas? And then I started thinking about what those folks were dealing with down there on coastal Texas and up to Houston and down in southeast Mauriceville, Orange, and those areas, Beaumont. And I started thinking about what those people were dealing with, and I thought, you know what? I told them right there on Fox and Friends, I told Jillian Millie, I said, I was down there the other day and I saw a mosquito so big it was mating with a turkey, standing flat-footed, and I said, they need bug spray down there. I still got bug spray from Hurricane Harvey. Bug spray started showing up by the cases and the truckloads. And I thought, that's the spirit of Texas right there. We didn't have to mandate that we help our neighbors when Hurricane Harvey hit. We didn't have to tell each other. There were folks over here in Montague County, over here in St. Joe that loaded up the off-wheel trucks and the four-wheel drives and these monster vehicles and went down there, and they went where the Corps of Engineers couldn't go. Nobody told them to put all those vehicles on a flatbed and go down there. What do you think would have happened if Greg Abbott had come along last year and said, we're dealing with something we've never dealt with before. We're not sure what it is, but you know what? You're adults, you're Texans, you know how to take care of each other, you know how to take care of yourself. Now, if you're afraid of something, then you deal with it your way. If you want to shut down your business, shut down your business. If you don't want to go to church, don't go to church. If you want to go to church and stand in the corner, wear a mask and spray paint yourself with aerosol and everything else and pour yourself in antiseptic and everything else to protect yourself, you do that, but that's up to you. But to come in there and say, nope, we're going to shut down churches. We're going to shut down the freedom of religion. We're going to shut down the freedom of speech. And we're going to stop people from going out and entering into the free market economy. We're going to create more job loss than the Great Depression did. And people are still suffering from this thing. If he'd have done that, I think it would have been a different result. But when you pander to politics, liberty gets lost. And what happens is that's passed down to the people. And that's what we saw happen. But that's what we saw happen. I say that it's the old adage that culture runs downstream from politics. Politics runs downstream from religion. And that's it. We've lost sight of what's really important. We've lost our view of God, faith, the scriptures. We've lost our view of something that's bigger than us, that we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, and among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I wasn't very happy last year. I gained 20 pounds during the quarantine. I drank 24 bottles of wine the first week of quarantine. That's how bored I was, Shelley. It was crazy. Not quite that much, but it was enough. I'd finished Netflix. There's just nothing to do. You're sitting over there, twiddling your thumbs. I'm bored. There's only so much Facebook you can do. That's what we're doing. And our liberties were taken. And that's why I say, I want government out of my life. I want to know that if I own my home, I don't have to lease it from the government for the rest of my life. Yeah. I want to know that if a child is conceived under various circumstances that could be very horrible, that we have a voice for the unborn, and that we believe that a heartbeat is sacred, that we believe that when a male seed connects with a female egg, that the blueprint for life, the DNA, the RNA is immediately imprinted at that moment and determines what that person will be for the rest of their life. I'm a pro-life guy. I'm a conservative because I'm pro-life. I began fighting for the unborn as a teenager. I fought for the unborn when I was in school at the University of Georgia. I fought for the unborn when I was in grad school at Columbia International University, Columbia, South Carolina. I've been an advocate, outspoken. I like to tell people that even though I wasn't born here, I was conceived in Dallas. Dallas was different in 1972 than it is today. So, since life begins at conception, I'm at least seminally a Texan. I take a lot of pride in that. I love this state. I love the passion this state brings. People come from all over the world and they go back home and they're friends. And I've heard this because I spent 20 years in third world countries and all over the world working, doing humanitarian aid work, doing missions, doing medical work. And I'd meet people from all over the world and they would come back and they said, we went to America, and our friends all said, but did you go to Texas? We are writing history, folks. We can talk about our Bowies, we can talk about our Travises, we can talk about our Austins, we can talk about our Crockett's, we can talk about Austin, all these characters of history. And they left us a legacy that's incredible. But you're writing history now. What we're leaving for our children and grandchildren is virtually untenable in the next 10 years. It's not about politics. It's about that culture of Texas. It's running downstream from our politics, but that's running downstream from our faith. We've lost faith. We've lost sight in the bigger thing that matters. And we're down here quibbling and squabbling over these political issues. And while I want you to be passionate about them, I want you to get a bigger vision. The history that's being written, that we're leaving to our children, can be a perfect example of the ranchers that I spoke to down in South Texas just this week, where they said, we've had this land since the 1800s. It's been passed down. We've been ranching this land for generations, 8 generations, 9 generations, some of them. And they said, our kids don't want it. They want out. They want to leave. Because for this very reason, I asked numerous people down there, I said, you grew up here. You're 70 years old now. Do you feel at home? And they said, no. That tells you right there, we've got a future that's not going to last, folks, here in the state of Texas. And as long as we have people in Austin, Texas, who are playing with our legacy, playing with our liberty, playing with our history, and changing our lives, guess what? None of us are going to feel at home here very soon. And that breaks my heart. I want to get government out of our life. I want politics to go back to being boring. Let those people do their job that we elected them to do. We're the ones who are in control. We're the ones who have the power. If we want election integrity, by God, we go get it. If we want to protect life, we protect life. We want to defend our borders, we defend our borders. You say, how? I met with the sheriff of Kinney County yesterday. You know what they're doing? They've gone to Greg Abbott over and over again and asked for the DPS and equipment to come in and defend their county. They have about 17 miles, 20 miles of direct border connection to Mexico. And that angle of the way the county is in the state and to Mexico, it is direct influx. It flows up northeast into the state, or into the county, hits the rail yard, and as soon as the illegals hit the rail yard, they're in San Antonio. And Greg Abbott said, we have all the equipment. We have all the defenses. We have all the manpower. We have all of the drones. We have all of the armored trucks. We have all of the guns. We have all the rifles. We have the dogs. We have the ability to... And they said, we don't have it here. Where is it? So you know what they're doing? Some of you won't like this. I love it. They're raising $15 million right there in their county. You know what they're going to do? They're going to hire security contractors to come in and take care of their own borders. I love it. I love it. There's 20 counties on our border. 1,252, 1,254, 4. Very precious miles of border. I wish every county down there would have that kind of initiative. Well, I'll tell you what, when there's people with tattoos on their face smuggling human beings through your ranch, destroying your property, destroying your home, threatening your lives, you can't even leave your children at the bus stop in the morning, you'll come up with some solutions. It's amazing when your life's on the line how innovative you get. I'm proud that they're doing that. I want to get their story told. At some point in time, folks, we take the power back. We've been told we can't do it. We think bureaucracy has gotten too big for us. And it can be intimidating when there's 2.5 million unelected bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. serving under the...
Go ahead, say it, Jen.
the pee-pads and the knee-pads administration. Sorry, Pastor, but you get it. It's where we're living, folks. I don't have my filter has big holes in it, y'all. It's Joe Biden's been asleep for 3 hours already right now. He doesn't care what's going on at the border. But 2.5 million unelected bureaucrats reaching their bony, greedy fingers into Texas business right now. Taking from you, taking from us, taking from our community, taking from our state, taking. I want to get government out of our life. People say, what are you running on? I want to get government out of our life. I was talking to the pastor a little while ago, and I love it. I love this church. I just come in here and just have a few conversations, and I already love the spirit of this place. And the governor tells him he's got to shut this church down. He said, nope. Come and take it. You remember that spirit?
Yep.
I think it's still alive. I think it's still alive here in the state of Texas. Because you get it. You've caught it. And you see it. You're here tonight because you get it. What do we do with it? Since 1800, Texas never gathered more than 1,000 fighting men. And with less than 1,000 men, Sam Houston and the leadership of Texas after the Alamo gained independence, gained statehood, nationhood, and a republic with less than 1,000 men. That's the spirit of Texas. It took over one of the greatest superpowers of the day in Santa Anna's army and won. I believe by divine providence. I believe God's hand is still on America. I believe God's hand is still on this state. I believe that God truly blessed Texas and desires to bless it again. But it's going to be us. It's going to be a people who seek the blessing, want the blessing, are willing to fight for the blessing. And after coming back off of that border this morning, and I'll be back down there again this next week. I'll be in Harlingen, be in Brownsville, Matamoros, we'll be in McAllen, and crisscrossing this state every week, day after day. I fall in love with its beauty, I fall in love with its people, I fall in love with its legacy, its heritage, its story, and I want us to leave a story. But we got to get government out of our life. Those who would seek to infringe on your rights have got to go. That's the conversation that I'm having. That's the conversation Don Huffines is having. That's the conversation that Colonel Allen West is having. That's why when we get together and have some form of a forum or a symposium, we're just going to go, yep. Because we want it out of our life. Now, I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and I get that. I make a living telling jokes, singing songs, running my mouth. But hey, you got to give it to me. I'm pretty smart. I've been pretty successful in being able to sit in an air-conditioned building and talk for a living. I grew up laying bricks. I used to keep a brick on my desk in college. That was my family business, and I knew that if I flunked out of college, I was going to go back to laying bricks. And y'all can look at me. I'm reasonably lazy. Apathy tends to be, well, at least physical activity, apathy tends to be my default setting. But I'm indefatigable in terms of my passion and my go and my hustle and my firm belief that this is a fight we got to go after as hard as we can. And I'm encouraging you to join me on that. At least listen to what I'm saying, because if it's not me, then let it be Colonel West. If it's not me, then let it be Don Huffines. I brought him right here. He's in my pocket. I got him. Hang on a second. That one got you. That one, you sat here stoically all night long. And me talking about Don being short. That's good. I appreciate that. I love Don. I saw him at CPAC the other day. I hugged his neck and I said, I'm still trying to get a donation from your campaign. See, we don't have to be passionate about fighting each other. We can get along. And that's what we're trying to do. And at the end of the day, I think that's what we're going to do here in the state of Texas. Whether it's me, whether it's another candidate, these people are standing up. They're putting their lives on hold. They're putting their necks on the line. And let me remind you, that's something that Greg Abbott has never done as long as he's been governor. He's never put his neck on the line for any piece of legislation except pre-K for all. That's it. And he was motivated by other factors. That wasn't even him. His wife. I want to be able to say there's somebody in Austin, Texas that's willing to put it all on the line for your freedom. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to go down there, we're going to represent when the priorities of the GOP, the priorities of the people come forth, and we're sitting there in the 87th legislative session, the most conservative session ever in the history of Texas, and only two get a nod from that governing body, and the other 6 go ignored, and by the time those 2 get to the governor's desk, and he didn't want to sign them anyway, they're so watered down, they're virtually unrecognizable from the initial bill that was written. It's time to get government out of our life. When the insiders are so threatened by the outsiders that they make it as difficult as they possibly can, it's time to make the insiders outsiders, and it's time to get government out of our life. You know how hard it is to run for office? You know how hard it is to fill out a campaign finance report?
Yeah.
It's impossible. You know why they make it that way? So you won't do it. You know what the Texas Ethics Commission? You know what it exists for? To catch you and fine you. It's time to get government out of our life. Whenever we devalue humanity, the sacredness of life, it's time to get government out of our life. Whenever government has gotten so big that we can't even afford to live in our own homes, it's time to get government out of our life. You know, our football teams will play good football even if we're sitting on metal bleachers instead of a Division II, $60 million football stadium for the high school. That's on us. When it's to the point where we have not conserved anything, that government has gotten so big that even we so-called Republicans and conservatives wouldn't know what to do with ourselves if suddenly tomorrow government got small. We've grown dependent on it. It's time to get government out of our life. This government is not good. It's not good. It's time to make a change, and I'm encouraging you to do that. I appreciate you guys, and I love you, and I'll just leave you with this. One of my favorite things, and I've said it all across the country, I've said it over and over again, and to me it sums up people like you. Blue-collar, hard-working, blaze your own trail, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. When you fall down, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, keep moving forward, keep your head above water, provide for your family. Go to church on Sunday morning, work 6 days a week, pay your bills, take care of things, govern yourself, govern your family, govern your home, govern your community, and let the rest be boring. Because you know you've got the right people that you put there to take care of it. That's the backbone of Texas. And I always encourage folks, from the words of Walt Mason that I was alluding to a moment ago, 100 years ago, he said, there's a man in this world that's never turned down wherever he chances to stray. He gets a glad hand in a populous town and out where farmers make hay. He's greeted with pleasure in deserts of sand and deep of the Isle of the Woods. Wherever he goes, there's a welcoming hand. He's the man who delivers the goods. Not only do I want us to be men and women of substance that deliver the goods, but I want the folks that are sitting there in Austin, Texas, when we look at them, we say, we're proud of who we put in those seats. Not people who run from a fight or run from a debate or run from fighting for your freedom. I want to say we've got men and women sitting in those seats who deliver the goods because we put them there. I encourage you to find out more about me. You can go to Beto22.com. Yep. I'm not playing typical politics. I am here to offend the offendable. Listen, I do it, honey. I'm telling you, sis. Listen, the spirit of politics is an ugly, it's not even a swamp. That's an insult to swamps. It's draining the cesspool that is the porta potty of Austin. There's nothing alive in there. It's a weird chemical mess mixed with excrement. That's what it is. There's no ecosystem to it. There's no life to it. It doesn't give life. It takes life. So yeah, I'm fighting it in a different way. You can go to Beto22.com. It'll take you to Prather2022.com. Now there are the trolls out there who say, see, he's an operative of Beto O'Rourke. Oh, we know we're going to take your guns. Yeah. There's so many things Beto can't find. Much less my guns. Certainly can't find office. But he's going to spend, if he gets in, he'll spend $100 million to try to beat whoever runs as a Republican. Whoever wins this, I'll tell you this, if Greg Abbott gets the nomination, you know what he's going to do? He's going to spend another $100 million to do it. $18.7 million he raised in the 10 days after the legislative session ended. That's the last week in June. You think y'all didn't give him $18.7 million? Y'all didn't have that laying around. Mom and Pop didn't do that. Small town Texas didn't do that. Small people Texas didn't do that. You got to ask yourself, who did that? I mean, he's opened the door to Silicon Valley. He's Californiaing Austin. He's Californiaing Texas. He's allowed Facebook to come in here, Amazon to come in here, HP to come in here, Tesla to come in here. You think the culture's not going to change in the state of Texas? Absolutely. We're as purple as it gets. We're a purple monster. Because we've opened up the door to multinational corporations. We've allowed China to come in and buy our land. We've got energy that just doesn't work. 25% of our energy is green, which means we've taken ideologies and turned it into legislation. Those windmills, you know what those windmills need to be used for? We need to take them down to the border and put those at the fence and turn them on high. And let that be the last thing they got to get past right there. Build a wall, put the fans down there. And we're not mean. We'll put cushions on the end of the blades and just bump them right back into Juarez or Acuna or whatever. But that's what we do. And then we put the word out to the cartels. We say we've provided every ranch on the southern part of Texas with a backhoe. Cadaver dogs, they can smell to 12 feet. And if you come walking across our ranch, we're going to bury you at 14. People don't like that kind of talk. But you can't solve a complex solution being politically correct. When it comes to the border, we got to detect, we got to deter, we got to detain, we got to deport, we got to defend, and defending is ugly, but we got to do it. So go to Prather2022.com. There's so many things I could talk about, and I've taken enough of your time. Well, thank you. I want Abbott out. Because at the end of the day, Greg Abbott, a couple weeks ago on Facebook, I put 7 headlines about what he was going to do, and they were news headlines, what he was going to do about the border. And I posted those headlines. And you thought, man, that's great. The problem was those were headlines from 2015. He's a campaign conservative. You can pull them out and read them right now today in 2018, and he's saying the same thing. I got a picture of myself standing in front of his border solution down there. You know what it is? It's coiled up, rolled up chain link fence. I've got pictures in here of what they're doing to high fences down there on those ranches. They're not cutting a little hole to squeeze through. They're obliterating whole sections of it. Nobody's keeping them out. You can also go to abbottout.com. Takes you to the same place. We're serious about this, folks. We're serious about this. I love y'all. God bless you.
Love you too.
God bless Texas. And may God bless the spirit of Texas, and may God give us the grace to get government out of our lives. Thank you.